Hello guys, my name's Matt Sawyer. I'm the product manager here at Symposia. I'm in charge of the development of our platform and the general architecture of the system. So I'm going to start off by taking you through a couple of slides just to show you how to get your event website converting. So we're going to talk about the couple of methods, ways that you can kind of boost the conversion rate of your website. But most importantly, within the context of an event. So first of all, I'd like to start off by running through a couple of powerful marketing tools. And these are things that we've used and our clients have used in the past just to really accentuate and boost those conversions. So the first one, although perhaps quite obvious, is analytics tools. So by analytics, we mean services such as Google Analytics and other third-party tools that you can integrate with. So normally, using Google Analytics as an example, they'd give you an embed code which you can add to your website, and then they start tracking things such as page views. But did you know that analytics can do far more than this? So the general usage is you can track page views, you can find out the popular pages on your website, pages that see a lot of traffic. You can also see where your visitors are coming from, perhaps from people that have shared content, links through from other sites, search engine results. But you can also leverage on other tools. And one of those tools is event tracking. So it's one thing tracking your page views, but what if you want to identify specific key elements and see how well they're performing? So in the example we've got on this slide, we have a picture of one of our clients' websites. This is AdTech. And in the top right-hand corner, we have a couple of call to action boxes. So the pink, the green, and the blue box. So these call to action boxes are almost the most prominent buttons across the site. One thing we've used event tracking for in the past is to actually track how many clicks those particular buttons get, so that we can actually gauge what wording gets the highest conversion, the most number of clicks, what colors get the most clicks, and just a really good way of finding out what works and how you can get people. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It completely depends on your visitors, but by enabling event tracking, it gives you the ability to almost find out this information about your visitors and find out what really resonates with them. You've also got what's known as conversion tracking. So if you've got a registration process, it might be that at the end of that registration process, you ping a quick notification to Google that says that a conversion has been made, so that within analytics itself, you can build clear graphs and charts and clearly show over time the number of registrations. And this is useful because it allows you to identify kind of peaks and troughs in your registration process, and almost allows you to kind of gauge how effective a lot of your marketing campaigns are. So for example, if you send out an email campaign, by adding conversion tracking, you can kind of gauge whether or not the overall registrations for your event went up and down as a result of that campaign that you just run. So you can work out the value of that campaign. Is it something you want to redo in the past, or is it worth trying something else? Another useful tool is data capture. So what we mean by this is things like forms, newsletter signups, creating user accounts on your website. So things that allow you to find out a little bit more about your users. So by default, analytics might tell you where your users are coming from, what country they're from, maybe a couple of their interests, but you don't know who they are, who they work for. So data capture allows you to find this information out, kind of build a list of contacts which you can aim your marketing at in the future. So just to elaborate on those points, a form could be in the form of your registration process. That's the most obvious one. But what if you want to know a little bit about them before they register? It could be that you would have a contact form on your website. And as part of that contact form, you would collect their first name, their last name, the company they work for, and their email address. So already we're seeing some value added here. With that information, you could find them on LinkedIn, send them an invite to the event, connect with them, have some additional conversations around that. You can also store that information for future campaigns if you want to. You've also got your general newsletter sign-up. So the contact form is one thing. Newsletter signups are almost a way of collecting data, but it's a little bit more user-friendly. It requires less manual input. And traditionally, you might collect, say, a first name, maybe a last name, and an email address. It's usually nothing more than that, because the idea is you want to create a form that's as simple for people to fill out as possible. You can build a mailing list that you can send out your future campaigns to. Finally, you've got user accounts. So as part of your website, it might be that you enable some sort of public registration and login features so that people can create accounts to perhaps view private content or perhaps leave comments on any kind of content or news and updates that you post. Again, this is another useful tool because if somebody's created an account on your website, you've got a permanent record of who they are, which then allows you to track who this person's been looking at, and potentially, if you've got the right kind of tracking in place, you can identify perhaps who's been looking at the registration process but hasn't maybe quite converted yet. So you can send them reminders about doing that. You can also gauge an individual's personal interests. You can see what content they've been looking at and make sure that you provide some sort of tailored marketing to that person. It just allows you to kind of more directly focus your marketing at the right people rather than doing a general broadcast. The next point I want to cover is display ads. So I'm going to break this down into two sections. The first section is what we would call generic adverts. So things like Google AdSense that just provide user-specific advertising based on browsing history. While this may not have anything to do with your event, it does provide some sort of monetization. So if you have an event website which generates a lot of traffic, you can use generic adverts just to kind of boost the amount of revenue that your website makes and obviously increase your kind of marketing funding using that income. But the second option, which we feel is much more powerful, is bespoke adverts. So there's a couple of systems out there. One that we have used in the past is Revive, but I know that they're not the only bespoke ad serving system that you can use. So if you have bespoke adverts on your website, it allows you to almost offer this as a product to your sponsors, your exhibitors. And yeah, so it allows you to promote these adverts to your sponsors, your exhibitors, and it essentially adds value to your event. So you can either use that as a kind of all-in-one inclusive package so that anybody who is a sponsor of your event automatically is given a advert within the website, or it could be that you have this as like a value-added service where perhaps premium sponsors pay a little bit more, but this is one of the extra services they get. So it's just a form of kind of revenue generation for your event, perhaps more targeted at your suppliers, your sponsors, rather than your attendees. Last but not least is the social media sharing section. So social media comes in many forms, but for events especially, one of the most useful things you can do with social media is promote the sharing of your content. It almost kind of provides a free advertising stream for your event. And we mean free in terms of cost. It might be that you've got to spend a bit of time getting this set up, but the return on investment for these kind of services can be great if you do them right. So for social sharing, you can see in the example there, we've got the social sidebar going down the side of the site, and that just allows a visitor to share particular content with their friends and colleagues. Another thing you might want to do is actually direct your visitors to your Facebook, Twitter pages and actually encourage them to follow you. Unlike just sharing out content, if somebody follows your page, it then means that any kind of future news that you put on your Facebook page is automatically put in front of them. So it almost becomes like a kind of source of free, very targeted advertising stream for you. Okay, so the next point I want to cover is engaging content. So this is probably a term you've heard in the past. Content is king. It's one thing to put a website out there with perhaps a couple of words about your event. And sometimes you put an event website out there just because you've been told that an event website is a good thing to have without really any kind of knowledge about what you want to do with it. So making sure that you've got good content on your site is imperative. It encourages social sharing and it also improves the overall experience that your users will have when viewing your website. So what we mean by that is one thing we try to stay away from is pages that are too text heavy. It might be that you've got the most incredibly worded content, a couple of paragraphs about what your website and your event is about, But ultimately, it might not engage your users because they're presented with a wall of text and they're a bit put off by that. So usually you can get around with this by breaking up your content with useful images, infographics, and make sure if you use these images and infographics that are related to your content. So just kind of a way of adding value to your content. Another thing we found, which has been quite useful in the past, is engaging videos. So perhaps interviews with sponsors, attendees that have been to your past events, and they've got good things to say about your events. So by seeing previous attendees, what kind of reviews and nice things they're saying about your event, it encourages people to get involved subsequent years because they can see that they see names that they recognize. So you'll see with Gastech, they've got Shell as one of their main sponsors, a nice prominent brand. If you've got an interview with the CEO of Shell saying how great your event is, that's going to be really powerful for future marketing and future engagement with your event. So it's worth getting hold of these types of videos. So if you've got an event coming up, make sure you get a little bit of footage and interviews with people on the day, and make sure you get some people from prominent companies and organizations so you can name drop and get these people displaying on the site, obviously with the relevant permissions sorted out. Technical SEO is also another really good point to cover. So usually event services such as Symposia will they will provide your kind of bulk standard SEO service. And by this, we mean making sure that you have all your keywords, meta descriptions in the site. And most companies will do this by default. But you can actually boost this even further by considering a few additional points. I'm going to cover those now. So the first thing is page load or speed load, or loading times. And what I mean by that is Google provide a tool called Page Speed Insights, and this allows you to type in the address of your website, and it will give you a kind of score on 1 to 100 about how quick your website was to load. We're talking about the difference between maybe like 1 second and about 4 seconds, none of which are particularly bad, but they all count towards your overall search engine rank. So normally a site, to get sort of a reasonable kind of grade, you want to be in the kind of 70 out of 100 kind of margin. Obviously more is better, less is absolutely acceptable, but 70 is probably what you want to aim for as a kind of minimum baseline. So it's worth checking, only because a lot of companies wouldn't provide this service by default. So if you find that perhaps your website isn't performing as well as it should do from a kind of loading time point of view, you're welcome to have a conversation with your own developers, or even start a conversation with us. We're happy to have a talk about that with you guys. And I think we've got a couple of contact forms and method of contacts on our website, symposia.co.uk, which you can see in the bottom of the slide. But it's a really useful thing to get your head around. The next point is mobile friendliness. So we're living in a world that's mobile first. I think a large portion of traffic these days comes from mobile devices, if not the majority of web traffic. So when you create a website, make sure you go with something that can scale down to a mobile device. You may have heard the term mobile first. So traditionally, when developing a site or starting a new event show cycle, you would get your desktop site designed, and then you would scale down and create a mobile version secondary. The forward-thinking method is actually to flip that completely on its head. So instead of doing the desktop site first, you would design yourself a mobile site, considering that the bulk of your traffic is likely to come from those devices, and then scale up to a desktop version. Although that's the preferable approach, as long as your website works well on both devices, that is absolutely acceptable. So I want to just make that point clear. So finally, with SEO, another really great tactic that you can use to kind of boost conversions, get people to your website, and make sure you rank for the search terms that you want to, is to get prominent organizations and figures within your industry to share your event. So what I mean by that is, if you have a list of sponsors, attendees, exhibitors, make sure you're actively prompting them to share your event on social media and link through. So for example, if a sponsor has a profile on your website, make sure that the company who is that sponsor puts out their profile on social media, and just really encourage your attendees and companies and sponsors, exhibitors to do this, because that will create so many points for your SEO ranking. So next up, what are the must-have features for any event website? So there's obviously a huge array of features, hundreds and hundreds. So we're not going to cover all of these in this session, but I wanted to highlight a couple of useful features we've found in the past. So although not directly related to conversion, they're tools and features which your members and visitors will find really useful, which will hopefully encourage them to revisit, but also share out your content. So first up is the program feature. So most of the websites that we produce, the events want some way of displaying their program or their agenda for the event on the day in a kind of easy, concise, legible format. So by definition, programs can be quite complex. They can often be spread over several rooms, several stages, several days. Within each session, you've got descriptions, content, speakers, moderators. So there's quite a lot of complexity depending on the event. And it's just making sure that you have a program that represents all of that in a kind of clear and concise way. Another thing to consider is if you do have a program feature, make sure that it works well on mobile devices. Because one thing that we've seen quite a lot in the events industry is a program which looks great on desktops. You've got a lot of big space to kind of put your information into. But when you scale down to mobile, perhaps it's a little bit difficult to navigate because everything almost kind of sits in one big chronological list, which you have to constantly scroll through. So make sure you've got the right kind of filters and options in place so that people can find the sessions that they want to attend on the day. Downloads and documents. So on the kind of back of your kind of sessions, it might be that you attach value-added content. So when a session is ended, you might have a list of session notes and useful files documents that can be downloaded once a user has attended a given session. So if they haven't taken their own notes, perhaps you've got a series of notes that they can download. Profile self-management is another really powerful tool which we've had in the past. So this is the ability for your speakers, your governing body members, your sponsors, and exhibitors to log into your website and manage their own profiles. So as a speaker, it might be that you want to update your photo to the latest one. It might be as a company, you want to change your logo or your address, or perhaps modify your profile description a little bit. Actually, having these user accounts that people can log into to manage their own profiles will save you as the marketer a lot of time. Because, I mean, we've found that sometimes managing the content becomes unnecessarily long. Throughout the show cycle, you might spend days of your time actually updating information. Whereas if you've got the right system, it will enable your exhibitors, sponsors to actually log in and manage their own information. Now, it's worth considering this because this kind of setup is not appropriate for all events. But if your event is something where this would work, it's absolutely something that's worth exploring because it will save you so much time. Again, our team, if you want to get in touch, is that we're absolutely happy to have these conversations with you guys. If you have any questions about how you can get those kind of tools and services enabled for your event. So yeah, please do get in touch if you've got any questions about profile self-management. The next point is the countdown feature. So I can already kind of virtually see a lot of you rolling your eyes. Countdown feature, that's been around for so long. Why would you want a countdown feature or even think about featuring it in your presentation? So countdown features have been around for a long time, but they've stood the test of time. And the reason why we really like them is because they almost kind of create a sense of urgency. So let's imagine you land on a website and the first thing you see is your event kind of header, the website logo, your navigation. Directly under that, the first bit of content you see is this large, prominent countdown timer, counting down the days to the event. It almost kind of creates a sense of urgency that, hey, actually, should I be buying a ticket because the event's not that far away? So directly underneath our countdown timer, there might be a big prominent register now button. So you're really kind of making people go straight down that route before they've even seen the rest of the content for your site. If they've landed on your site, they know what your event's about. They're there to book. You're making it as easy as possible for them to find that. Okay. So there's another couple of must-have features which we want to present to you today. So the next one is registration. And this is something that'll be common for almost every event website out there. Ultimately, your main goal for your event website is to get people to buy tickets to the event and ultimately attend the event. And the website is a means to get people to that point. So there's a few different ways that you can handle registration. The first is just kind of a local form on your website. This is almost kind of the simplest solution where people would fill out a form. It goes into some sort of central submissions list, and then you can use that submissions list as a kind of base of people to phone up, take payment, for example. That's the kind of the traditional method. The kind of more modern method that we're seeing with a lot of the events that we serve is using a lot of third-party services. So some third-party services almost act like a hybrid, so that rather than taking somebody off your website, you actually integrate a third party into your own site. So things like HubSpot forms or payment gateways that kind of integrate into your pages so that they can be displayed through your normal URL. And these things are useful because services like HubSpot, they will allow you to kind of collate your registrants and almost kind of build a lot of analytical data so that you can really keep track of who's registering for your event. So, if you have something like HubSpot, maybe the kind of Google Analytics conversion tracking isn't something that you'll necessarily need because your actual registration provider gives you all these kind of tools and analytics on your behalf. Another tool which we've seen has been widely used and seems to be on the rise is services like Eventbrite. So for those of you that have heard of Eventbrite, they're essentially a catalog of events filtered by category, and each event has its own profile and kind of payment registration gateway. So the great thing about these kind of third-party portals is that they almost kind of handle everything for you. You create an account, you set up your event profile, and you create your ticketing options and all the payments, the conversion, it's all handled for you. Obviously, the disadvantage is that you're taking the user off site so that you're kind of changing the brand a little bit. The user is aware that they're no longer on your website. But hopefully, if you use a prominent service like Eventbrite, they'll be using a service which they know and trust. Because chances are, if you link out to a well-known third-party registration tool, your attendees will have seen this before, events they've attended in the past. That trust will be there. Clear call to actions or CTAs. So this all revolves around the goals for your website. So the most traditional goal is to get people to convert and to register for your event. So in order to do that, make sure the call to actions, the buttons, the links, the kind of user flow and journey for your website, make sure it all leads towards the goal that you have in mind. So for most people, that'll be registration. But if you have a different goal in mind for your event, perhaps you want to drive people to sign up for your newsletter, make sure that that is prominent across your site with clear call to actions. If the main driving factor for your website is to get people to sign up for your newsletter, make sure that from any page, people can get to that point with one click. Responsive design is another must-have feature. So we live in a mobile-first world, so making sure that your website works good on desktops, tablets, mobile devices is a must. Here at Symposia, we don't even offer these as optional add-on services. Everything that we produce is responsive and adaptive by default. We would never produce a website that is desktop only or mobile only, unless there was a specific requirement for that. But the de facto for us is everything is responsive. Because if you're not responsive, you're almost kind of preventing 50% of your market from being able to access your website. So it's really important to make sure your websites are responsive. Again, if you're in a position where your sites aren't responsive, please do get in touch because we'd love to assist on that part. User experience is also another key factor. So just making sure that the design of your site and the kind of user journeys in there are all as they should be. Don't overcomplicate things. Make sure content is easy to read, is legible, make sure that your website has been carefully thought out. So it's not just a kind of a data dump of things that are happening at your website. It's a well-designed website which has a clear user flow and user journey. So I want to end this webinar with just a bit of a talk about what we do as a company at Symposia. So we're made up of a number of experts in our field. I've got myself, who's got several years of development with events and collaborations with event websites. We've got a series of marketing teams as well. So we're kind of a general events services company, and we, as well as advice, predominantly we deliver websites and mobile apps for events. And one of the things we pride ourselves in most is the fact that by delivering websites and mobile apps as a single service, we can kind of create this setup which allows us to, well, it allows you even to manage all of your information from a central place, which then gets rolled out to your website and your app. So something we found in the past is that a lot of events struggle with the fact that they've got one CMS for their website, another CMS for their mobile app, because they're quite disjointed. So we've tried to create almost like a one-stop CMS. So if you add a sponsor to the CMS, that automatically gets rolled out to the website and the app without any extra effort. Symposia is simple by nature. We also, as a company, try to stay away from hard coding things. So one thing that a lot of our clients have struggled with in the past with other suppliers is they have an event website built with certain goals and principles in mind, and the site is almost locked down to those initial goals, which means anytime something needs to be changed, it requires days, weeks of redevelopment to kind of achieve the new goals. Symposia is all about flexible design and flexible CMS, so that when we put out websites and mobile apps, the content, the ordering of content, the kind of call to actions, it's all CMS controllable. So at any time, if you decide that actually you want to modify your goals somewhat, this is all stuff that can be done via the CMS. One of our founding principles is that if you need something done, you should be able to do it yourself. Although, to elaborate on that point, we have a support team available to help with any kind of additional queries that might lie outside of your particular project. We also pride ourselves in mapping data out sensibly. So for any event website, you'll have your key data types like sponsors, exhibitors, people. And a real challenge that we've seen in the past is marketers that, in order to, say, update a person's photo, this person might be involved in the event as like a speaker, they might be a governing body member, they might show up in a slideshow on the homepage. We've got 3 different locations, and then if they want to change their photo, they've got to go around the site, they've got to update their photo in multiple locations. We have a really sensible data structure that if you ever do want to update some content, such as a company name, a logo, somebody's photo, you do it in one place, and that is rolled out across the board, across your websites, across your apps. So everything boils down to a central data point. We also invest quite a lot of time in multi-site platforms, actually, and this is quite an important point for us. A lot of our clients, such as Daily Mail Group or DMG, these guys run the gas tech portfolio, and one of their key requirements is that their oil and gas portfolio, they have a series of about 7 or 8 websites, but what they didn't want to do was almost kind of have to individually run 7 or 8 separate websites with different teams. So we actually created a system with Symposia which allows these 8 websites to hook into a central CMS. So let's do a bit of a case study. Imagine we have Shell as a company, and they have a company profile within Daily Mail Group's gas tech framework. The great advantage is that that single Shell company record can be distributed to all 8 websites. So if Shell is in a sponsor for one, no problem, create a sponsor profile for Shell, attach it to their company record. If they're an exhibitor for another website, no problem, create the exhibitor profile, attach it to the central company record. So all of a sudden, we have one single company that's distributed across to all these websites. So again, if you wanted to change Shell's logo, you change it in one place, it updates your whole portfolio, 8 websites, 8 mobile apps, and you've managed to do all of that from one single place. So we're all about sensible data management and multi-site setups. So moving on to a few more examples, some of the most recent projects that we've done are with the guys at AdTech. So this is by a events company called Symposia, and for them we run their or help them run their AdTech portfolio from a digital perspective. So these guys have a series of events across the globe. I think most recently they've done a show in New York. They've got one in Sydney, New Zealand, New Delhi, London, so big international brand. And these guys they came to us with an issue. They were quite separated in that for each country there was a separate marketing team, all with their own kind of unique website. So there wasn't really a kind of consistency for their brand across their portfolio. So what we're currently helping AdTech with is just kind of creating a kind of consistent brand for them across all of their events and sites, and always kind of creating a central platform that they use for all websites. So it's great for them because it gives them a kind of consistent brand, consistent colors, but it also is massively powerful because it allows them to distribute and create a new site almost on the fly. They would give us a little bit of warning, and within a day we could have their next site for their next event up and running, because we have their kind of platform that we've created for them, and we can roll that out for as many show cycles that they might have. We've also got the gas tech portfolio. So this is the 8 sites that I was talking about earlier. This is by Daily Mail Group, DMG. These guys have a series of events, and they all run from a central platform again. And guys, I want to point out these examples are probably some of our more complex clients. As well as doing these kind of big, elaborate, multi-site, data-driven systems, we're also quite good at doing the kind of low-key, simple events. So, if your event is just like a local event, perhaps with a lower budget, don't be put off by these examples at all. We absolutely cater for anything from big, multinational, corporate events, all the way straight down to just small, local events that might involve a few hundred people. I also want to go through our approach as a company. So, Symposia, we want to have an approach that's as simple as possible. We don't want it to be painful for any of our clients when it comes to creating a new website. So, if you have a website with somebody else and, you're thinking of using our services, we want to make that conversion as pain-free as possible. So quite frequently, we'll help with content migration, things like this, just to get you up and running with the minimal of effort. Our kind of key founding principle is that, leave us to it. We'll handle all the technical side for you so that you can focus on the kind of conversions that make sense for you. So normally we'd start off with the kind of briefing phase where you'd tell us a little bit about your event. We'd have a bit of a conversation about what your goals are. Next step is we'd go on to the design phase where one of our experienced Symposia designers will actually design you a bespoke website. So although we use a kind of a single Symposia platform, the actual front end design for websites is very bespoke on a per event basis. So don't feel like by using our services, you're being funneled down a particular route. Our system is very flexible. We cater for a lot of different websites with different requirements. And, and our designs reflect that. If you go to a Symposia website, we don't want people to be able to instantly say like, oh, that's a Symposia website because it looks similar to other things they've seen. Our ethos is that a website should be unique, and the only thing that shows that it's a Symposia site is the backend CMS. The next phase is the development phase. So once we've created a beautiful design for you, we would then go pass this on to our developer team. Obviously myself, I'm involved in a lot of the development as the product manager here at Symposia, but we've also got a number of really qualified developers under our belt. And with the experience we've got, we always make sure we develop a really clear, concise and easy to maintain system, both for yourselves and for us, because at the end of the day, by creating these quality systems, we save you time, we save ourselves time. It just creates for a really efficient process. And then obviously once we've sent it your way, we've done all the relevant testing, the site's been approved, we go live. So the actual timescale for these, just to drop a couple of examples, we've had this kind of big corporate multi-site events, which might take us a number of weeks to set up. Alternatively, we've had people come to us with situations like, oh, by the way, guys, we have an event that starts in 5 days and we need a website. Our current suppliers have dropped us in it. We've actually had turnarounds as quick as 5 days. So this is from project sign off to actually going live and delivery. So if you are in a bit of a jam and you need somebody to help bail you out, please do get in touch, because these are the kind of situations that we can really excel at. Our process is so efficient that we can really get on top of these things and almost just take away the pain for you. Brilliant. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. Thanks ever so much for joining in, guys. Seriously, it's been great to see a couple of viewers down there. And I want to just want to finish off by saying, if you do have any questions whatsoever, myself, I'm available. A number of my colleagues, just a name drop. We've got Zach, Lindsay, two quite prominent figures in our company who would be more than happy to answer any questions. And drop us a message. If you're interested in using our services, please get in touch. We can tell you a bit more about that. But equally, if there's any kind of ideas that we presented as part of this webinar that you want to find out a little bit more information about, maybe a couple of examples of how we've implemented those, just so you kind of increase your own knowledge, please do get in touch. We'd love to have those conversations with you. Just to reiterate, my name's been Matt Sawyer, Product Manager here at Symposia. Thank you for watching our webinar. Just to follow up, I think we do have another webinar coming up in a month's time, and this will focus very much on our mobile app. So the focus of today's webinar has been very much to give you an overview of our websites and apps, whereas we'll be doing a very focused webinar on mobile apps and how those kind of integrate into the Symposia platform. So if you're interested in that, please do phone up, get in touch, and we'll be posting out news on our various Facebook, LinkedIn platforms as well, as well as our website. So if you're interested in mobile apps for your website, please do stay tuned for more, because we will be sharing some information about that. Brilliant. Well, thank you guys, and hopefully speak to you guys soon. Cheers.